We actually need a period of weak growth. We need growth to be weak to let supply catch up and relieve price pressures.
He wants you to have a period of weak growth. Weak growth, you guys. We need growth to be weak. Ladies and gentlemen, we continue to get insights from the Bank of Canada and their rate decisions, but more importantly, where we're going to go in the future. The number one question I always get is, what do you think is going to be happening to the interest rate in this month or the next one or whatever it is? Now, we did think that the United States were going to continue to raise rates. We did think that Canada would be pausing rates. We're now seeing Australia Central Bank also pause rates. So we're going to see more and more of this come. Remember, when you throw a ball, there's a period where it's spiking up. There's a period where it plateaus, which is when they pause the rates. And then there will be a period when rates come down. Everybody thinks that the rates are going to come down just for no reason at all. But I tell you to please reflect on history and think about, when did rates fall last time? If we think of 2001, what happened? Something terrible had to happen. 2008, when the economy was teetering on a precipice of going down the toilet, really, really bad. They had to drop rates. 2020, they had to drop rates. So if you want to have 0% rates again, you're actually wishing for something really bad to happen. But let's continue on with what the big Papa Tiff is talking about. The top Bank of Canada officials are speaking after the rate decisions, but he says some things in here that I think are kind of telling of where we are in the stream of time right now. So let's take a look at this right here. Our first one, he's talking about spending plans of the government. The way I would put it, he says, the way I would put it is that the government spending plans are not contributing to the slowing of growth that you see in our projection. But at the same time, they're not standing in the way of getting inflation back to its 2% target. Okay, a couple statements about that. Number one, he's employed by the government, so I don't think he wants to poo-poo on them too much, right? He's not going to say too much that's going to smack talk them back into being good little boys and girls. But what we can see over time is that government is taking up a larger and larger part of GDP. This doesn't matter about Canada or the United States. We're talking about most democracies where the government spending is going up and up. It's not 10% of GDP. It's not 15%. It passed 20%. And in most democracies now, it's around 25% of all GDP is consumed by governments, as they put more and more and more layers in there of different levels of government. Interesting note is that back in the day, I always talk about the Panama Canal. One of the guys that was a congressman in the United States actually went and found the engineer himself to build the Panama Canal and shook his hand. He flew out to his house and walked in his living room. Today, when we have something that goes down, no politicians go do anything really dirty or do any work. They have multiple levels. And I saw this hurricane that happened, and it said the guy with the shovel that was actually putting dirt in it had 250 layers of government in the middle. That's where we're at today. That's why we have such huge government spending. The second point, did you notice that he said back to our 2% goal? We always have to wonder, where did that 2% come from? Remember, it came from a guy in New Zealand, and I think it was in the 80s, who just pulled it out of the air for no reason. We should have stable money. We shouldn't have any inflation, really. But remember, inflation is a hidden tax. So that 2% is an extra 2% tax on you that you don't see coming off your paycheck. So they want that. The more inflation that there is, the governments are happier. They're getting more money in, and it makes the government's debt become less through inflation. That's why I want you to learn how to do that, so that the inflation that is in your own country can have your debt wiped out by inflation. That's what we love. Jason Hartman always says inflation-induced debt destruction. All right, so if we're going to get back to some of his other comments, I'm not really surprised about him saying nothing bad about the government. Now, he says on the rate cut, remember, the Macklem is commenting on the market pricing in of the rate cut. What I can say about our deliberations is that, based on the information we have today, the implied expectation in the market is that we are going to be cutting our policy rate later this year. Now, this goes into the United States, Canada, Australia, Europe, all over. The bond markets, the stock markets are all saying the government will for sure be dropping the rates later. And what we are hearing over and over again from all of these central banks is that the rates are going to be higher for longer. Don't expect the rates to come down until they get to that. Imagine we raised the rates 9 times in the United States. We raised it 8 times in Canada, and we still have only knocked down inflation, what, 3%? So imagine how much more we would have to do that. So they're not going to raise it anymore. They're going to count on the lag effect because remember, every time they raise those rates, it takes 12 to 18 months for the whole country to feel it. So we're only 12 months into the first rate hike, let alone the last one. So there's a lot more time and a lot more pain coming to the market, and they're waiting on that to do the work, not raising the rates anymore. So he says the market is implied expectation that they're going to cut it, but he says it doesn't look today like the most likely scenario to us, because they want you to know that they intend to keep it as high as they can for as long as they can. Also, when it's talking about negative quarters, he says, we're not forecasting for a major contraction. We're not foreseeing large increases in employment. Please understand, though, they have a dual mandate. Their first mandate is that they have to keep your money stable. The second mandate is high employment. But as you notice, every single time that they are raising their rates, they are complaining about how high the unemployment rates are because they want more people out of job. In Canada, just Canada, we need a lot more people out of work. We need around 200,000 job losses in Canada, 2 million job losses in the United States, just to try to balance that market out. So they want more people without work, and they need to have more companies go down and borrow less. Remember, they do not have a magic button to turn on and increase a lot of supply in the market. All they can do is control demand. So they make things so expensive that people can't afford it anymore, and that's going to slow down demand just in that case. So he says, we're not forecasting large increases in employment, even though every single time they put out their minutes, they're complaining about it. Now, notice this, I would remind you that we actually need a period of weak growth. We need growth to be weak to let the supply catch up and relieve price pressures. So here's my comments on that. Number one, if you don't have enough of something, make more. So just imagine if you had your entire family over for dinner and you guys are starving and you're in a bad economy and everyone is starving for food. What you need is food. If I don't have gas to put in my car, I need more gas. If I don't have something, I need more of it, supply of it. The answer is not to make it more expensive. If you go to the store and say, I can't afford groceries, and he goes, I know what the answer is. We're going to raise the prices even higher. And that way nobody will eat. I mean, it just doesn't make sense. We need supply. This is what always bothers me, that they're only pushing on demand by making it more expensive on people. They're not addressing the supply issue, which I did another video on friendshoring and reshoring. If you want to take a look at that, just click the link above. If you guys want to know, just keep on remembering this, that he wants you to have a period of weak growth. Weak growth, you guys. We need growth to be weak. I want you guys to remember that. Now, in addition to that, I want you just to take a look at what's happening to the smart money, which is the bond markets. I'm going to show you Canada and the United States. Remember, every single time that the rates go down, and when they go down, home prices go up. It's kind of like opposite land, okay? So when the mortgage rates go down, you have home prices go up. When mortgage rates go up, housing prices come down. And so I'm dealing with this every day, and I'm looking at these charts all the time to take a look at this. But please notice, in February, we started to have a lot of happy people as these rates fell down. And they fell almost 1%. So that pushes home prices up 10%. But then they rebounded again. Home prices went down 10%. And then they fell again just recently. And so people are really happy that these rates have fallen. Now, if we look in the United States, we're going to back them up a year or two. This is very, very similar. We had the November highs. We had the highs back in March again. So when Silicon Valley Bank actually went down, we saw those massive drops in those prices, as you can see on the right side of your screen, same as here. So we're having that fluctuate by 1% back and forth, up and down, kind of like a sawtooth, right? But especially since Silicon Valley Bank actually had all of those troubles, and Signature Bank and so forth. When those happened, the bond rate went down. The mortgage rates that the banks were offering went down, which pushes prices up. When you combine that with the spring market in North America, it's like just pouring gas on the fire. And we've now seen, back to their old tricks, home prices now are getting listed below what they're worth, hoping to have a lot of people come in and bid on them. And we're seeing that. Lots of people coming in. The auctions are all coming back with offer dates. And we're seeing a lot of high prices coming back. So that's why we have seen home prices rebound about 10% in reaction to those rates that have dropped. So that's your news for today. It's very, very interesting to me, but don't always think that this is the end of the story. This could very well be a dead cat bounce. Hope you have a great night, everyone. Thank you so much for coming by. Thanks for the support.